Shortly after moving to Melbourne from my parents' farm in the Riverina, I recall sitting with a very distressed aunt, listening to Winston Churchill announce to the world that Britain was at war with Germany. I have vivid memories of watching the army march along Swanston Street, fit and tan with heads held high, wearing the famous slouch hat. How proud I felt. Pride soon turned to tears when I realised many would never return. The bombing of Pearl Harbor brought the war closer to our door, followed by the bombing of Darwin on the 19th of February and Broome on the 3rd of March. Early in 1943, my husband, Frank, completed his training as a salvage diver and later that year was sent to Milne Bay. I went to Spencer Street to see him off, then trudged home alone to an empty house, carrying our 6-week-old son in my arms. After the bombing, American personnel began arriving, dressed in their smart uniforms and more money in their pockets than our troops had, and they seemed to be able to get an endless supply of silk stockings for the girls. There was constant friction between them and our diggers. Near the end of the war, Frank was working on the salvage of the Santhia in Calcutta. There was a mudslide and Frank was buried beneath the surface for 4.5 hours. His diving mate, Frank Sewell, used a high-pressure water hose to clear the mud and free him. The thing that saved his life was his American-designed helmet, which had a chin valve. I received the news of this accident just before the birth of our second son. After the war ended, followed many long years recovering. The strain on family life was very great and many families broke up. In the early years, a number of men couldn't cope and took their own lives. The tempo of life in Melbourne had changed. Finding it difficult to cope with a 9-to-5 job, my husband took a job in the outback of WA. The isolation and loneliness took its toll, so the children and I returned to Melbourne. He followed shortly after, but soon returned to diving and working overseas. I had to make a life for myself and became involved in community affairs.